So with all the doom and gloom surrounding the Montreal Canadiens following their disappointing loss in game number 2, I wanted to focus on one of the more positive angles of this team that admittedly is carrying over from game 1, and that is the performance and trajectory of one Juraj Slafkovsky. A guy who, unfortunately, looked a little bit lost in game number 2, especially after he fought with Brandon Hagel. We did mention this on the channel yesterday, but in a way, you can say that Juraj Slafkovsky kind of got schooled, taught a massive lesson at the hands of Brandon Hagel, not just because Hagel ended up fighting the guy and winning with a pretty blistering right hand, but because after the fight, it kind of took Juraj Slafkovsky off of his mojo. With that said, it's one game. We'll see whether or not he's able to bounce back in game 3. I did say in the previous video that, why are you being so harsh? It's one game. It's 2 games. Yeah, you have to be harsh. It's 1 game or 2 games out of 7, potentially. There is very little room for error here. So how Juraj Slafkovsky bounces back is going to be a pretty big deal. But in game 1, he did score 3 goals in the entirety of the contest. He had 7 shots on goal, all power play markers. He ends up getting the overtime winner, and he ends up putting his team on top to lead the series at the start of everything. With that said, I wanted to go over to a conversation posted by the folks on Dauber Hockey about Juraj Slafkovsky after that game 1 performance. Take a look at this. People aren't talking about this enough, Dauber Hockey said. Juraj Slafkovsky versus Leon Draisaitl in the early years of their careers. As a rookie, Juraj Slafkovsky had 4 goals and 10 points. Leon Draisaitl had 2 goals and 9 points. In their second year, Slafkovsky had 20 goals and 50 points versus Leon Draisaitl, who had 19 goals and 51 points. Third year, Slafkovsky had 18 goals and 51 points, and Leon Draisaitl had 29 goals and 77 points. And then in year 4, Slafkovsky had 30 goals and 73 points. Leon Draisaitl had 25 goals and 70 points. So, while Juraj has technically gotten better every single year from strictly a point production standpoint, it does follow a pretty interesting pattern with Leon Draisaitl in years 1, 2, and especially year 4. Now, Leon did have a really nice year 3, and it was around this time in Leon Draisaitl's career where we started to acknowledge that, hey, this guy actually might be pretty good. Draisaitl was taken 3rd overall by Edmonton in 2014, and he had a pretty difficult start to his career. I say that because he started out his post-draft career with 9 points in 37 games, but then he got sent back to the WHL. 53 points in 32 games over there as an 18-year-old, he dominated the Rockets, and then inevitably was good enough to stick around with Edmonton for 72 games the next year. It's why, if you compare it 1-to-1, Juraj Slafkovsky versus Leon Draisaitl, the ages almost match up perfectly here. As Juraj Slafkovsky, at 17 years old, his draft-eligible campaign, he had 10 points in 31 Liga games, and he was super good at the Olympics and everywhere else. It's why he ended up going 1st overall. Leon Draisaitl, a monster with the Prince Albert Raiders. However, actually, if we take a look at it, Leon Draisaitl, never mind. Leon Draisaitl's draft-eligible season was his 18-year-old year because Draisaitl has a later birth date. Juraj Slafkovsky has an earlier one, thus giving him technically 1 year of extra development versus Leon Draisaitl. Oh boy, things have just gotten a lot more interesting. Yes, you can compare the points. Yes, you can compare the numbers. Yes, you can compare rookie year, year 1, 2, 3. But if you just go off of the age, at age 19, Slafkovsky had 50 points in 82 games. Leon Draisaitl had 9 points in 37 games. At age 20, they had the same amount of points, although Slav had more points there. And then at age 21, Slafkovsky just had this 73-point year. Leon Draisaitl at 21 had 77. So there is an extra year's worth of buffer room for Leon Draisaitl to have this lead over Slafkovsky. At 22, Draisaitl had 70 points in 78. Slafkovsky is yet to play his 22-year-old year. And then immediately after, you're starting to see that Leon Draisaitl became one of the best players in the league. It was around this time when everybody was like, wait a minute, this guy's making $8.5 million a year at the time? The contract was seen as steep back when it was signed, but then very quickly did the Oilers look out like bandits because the guy was consistently putting up 100 points a year. Even this season, he dipped below that, but he only had 65 games played, so Leon Draisaitl is one of the best players in the league. Might I remind you, this guy had the highest AAV out of anybody in the league for a number of months until Kirill Kaprizov signed his extension. But still, Leon Draisaitl's making $14 million a year till 2033 for a reason. Of course, he is also a center, so that adds a little bit of extra value there. But when you think about the best-case scenario for Juraj Slafkovsky, you're thinking about guys in that Mikko Rantanen-esque mold. Big dudes that control the game with their frame. It's funny because you could say the same thing about Leon Draisaitl. He's a little smaller than Slav, but he plays a heavy game. And try to remember the last time you really saw Leon Draisaitl taking over a shift with his skating and his speed and whatever in the same way that Connor McDavid does. Draisaitl just doesn't do that. For the most part, he looks like a guy who looks slow. And I say that he looks slow, but he isn't really. It's just that's the way he appears to look when he goes out there because that's the frame that he has and the way that he moves around. So obviously, Leon Draisaitl, you would assume that his trajectory long-term is not really going to be hindered by any sort of foot speed or physical limitations because the guy just has hockey IQ for days. He's very strong on the puck and he can score a ton of goals. So hearing Juraj Slafkovsky being mentioned in the same breath as Draisaitl, obviously it's a pretty good sign for Montreal Canadiens fans. Let's go out there and read some of these replies here. Yves Giroux says, great stat. Slafkovsky doesn't have McDavid, but Draisaitl never had two line mates as productive as Caulfield and Suzuki. Slav's style reminds me of Jágr, though, who was 4th or 5th scorer on his team in his age 21 year, I believe. With Suzuki, Caulfield, and Demigod, there is lots of opportunity for Slafkovsky to get points. Good year for Slav. He needs 4 seasons with 50 goals and 50 assists to even tie Draisaitl. So, all the power to him. Another reply says, I don't see the playmaking where he ever cracks 100. He can definitely score 45 goals, but Draisaitl is such a cerebral player. Both are big guys that are coming along in their frames. I was telling my brother that just last night. Matt Boldy for me. The Canadiens suck, I'd rather be a Sens fan. Okay, so that seems to be one of the ways that we can think about Juraj Slafkovsky heading into the future, and for whatever reason, it seems like Leon's name is not unreasonable here when bringing up what exactly these guys are able to accomplish. So with all that said, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Is Leon Draisaitl a reasonable comparison to Juraj Slafkovsky, stylistically, analytically, statistically? How do you feel about this conversation? Is Dobber Hockey out to lunch? Let me know in the comments all your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.